It's about 1 in the morning. I care so much for Midnight Akabeka because I know he on it. Because he's talking about just as what I'm thinking, what my spirit is saying. That's what he's singing about. Or he says that he's just pushing out a vibration in his journey to help those who are really seeking on his journey. It says, and it's the same thing that I do with my videos. I try to put them out so that people who are um, really truly seeking answers or encouragement on this journey will somehow run across it and be like, oh, it's true. That's what I was thinking. So I am on the right path. Let me keep going. I'm not the only one. You know? It's just like people who have a rare disease. They always looking for someone else who has it. It's the truth. Anyway, I wanted to give you guys a couple of stories. You know, when I was on my journey at first, I was young. I'm gonna try to make it quick because they're actually long, and I want you to learn from it. Hopefully, I remember I married this guy from Jamaica, and I always saw our people as um one. I never saw separation between us. I couldn't see it because they looked just like me. So they had to be me. So anyway, I married this guy from Jamaica. I remember going back and forth to Jamaica, and those times, I thought that Jamaicans was more highly moral than Black Americans. So I sought out my agenda was to marry someone from there, and I did. I saw me learn for chat patois. We were married for 11 years, and the whole time he cheated on me because and the funny thing about it was he cared for me. He didn't want um, anyone else to have me, and yet he didn't want to be seen caring for a Black American woman. If you can understand that, it's they are programmed to that. Oh, it has to be one of our women. So they don't consider Black American one of their women. So does our people at home from Kushland. They are the same way. And that was very hard for me to accept and to understand in the beginning. And it kind of like pushes you away. That's why I can overstand a lot of Black Americans when they don't want to mix with our people from other places because they feel like they're only being used, and it's a weird feeling. But anyway, so I was in my early 20s and I met these people in Jamaica, and they were friends of the brother who I was married to, and they invited me to come to New York, saying get out of the South. So I came to New York. I left straight from Jamaica to their house in New York. And when I tell you, I'll never forget it. It was an eye-opening experience, but yet I wouldn't wish it on anyone. How they treated me. And he was my own people. How those people treated me in that house was not even, I don't think no one would treat a dog like that. And I couldn't believe it. But I had to stand. And what was the drawing on the wall for me is they had a friend that came by. He was a guy from Jamaica, and I was in my early 20s, and I think he was in his late 30s, early 40s. And they were sitting around in the house and they were saying the most horrible things about black Americans. They divided it like that. And then I was like, I'm black American, right? Thinking that like they maybe had forgot, but the reason was they were actually throwing shade at me. And he was, matter of fact, he was ex-military. He was in the military. And he started saying the most vulgar things about black people in America who were born in America. And I said to him, do you know that if not for the blacks in the West, you couldn't come here and do what you're doing now? Because soon as you got here, they would have put you in chains, right? You do know that. And they got so upset about, oh, you're lazy. And I said, oh my God, what is this? So I said to him, I said, so if Jamaica was so wonderful, why are you here? Why did you need to come here if Jamaicans knew how to do everything right? Do you know he got mad with me to the point where he wanted to fight me? A man, military, 21 I was. And he was in his late 30s, early 40s. So that was one experience. The next, because I want to keep it short, the next one, so after leaving there now, and some time went by, I had to get on my feet. I was in this big city, didn't know anything about New York. And I knew this Jamaican lady. Uh, she was really kind to me. She was all right compared to a lot of them. And she offered for me to stay with her. And I stayed with her for a couple of days, but her and her husband was having problems. And they were in like a one-bedroom apartment. If anybody know anything about New York, mostly everybody pay high rent for small places. So after my experience with the people um, before she helped me, I just didn't want to live with anyone anymore. So that's when I had heard about shelters. So I went to the shelters in Brooklyn, New York. And I remember coming into a room and one girl didn't want me in that room for some reason. But anyway, they put me in that room and that same girl, we became friends. So I thought. She was from Nigeria. I loved that girl because she was from Africa. And I had never met a person that was born in Africa. Because in Florida, at the time, I don't know about now, but at the time, there's not, where I grew up, there's not a lot of people from Kush land there. So we had a lot of Caribbeans and stuff like that, all from all the Caribbean islands, including Haiti, you know. So me and her started to hang out, and she was going to school. And I was working because I had married the guy, my ex husband in Jamaica. So I didn't want to take time to go to school because I had to work and help him and file for him to come to America. So we became friends and I moved out and she didn't have anywhere to stay and stuff like that. So I gave her somewhere to stay, you know? She's my people, right? She didn't have to pay me rent. I bought the food. She got food stamps, so she would buy food and I would cook and I would clean and she would go to school and she would sleep. I didn't care because I was in a big city and it was company, you know? So anyway, we're gonna fast forward and I introduced her to this guy and they actually end up dating and living together and probably getting married for all I know about now. And I left New York and my I filed for my husband and he came up and I went back to Florida. So long story short, my marriage broke up, of course. And I wanted to get back on my feet and different things like that. You know, life journey. I'm still in my I'm in my mid 20s, you know. And I called this girl, you know, who had lived with me, you know, for years, and me and her were talking on the phone still, you know. And she said, "Why don't you come back to New York and you can stay with me and our my guy, the guy that I introduced her to?" I'm like, "Fine, you know, they know me. I've lived with them or whatever, whatever, you know. I mean, they live with me, you know." And they were so enthusiastic about helping me because they knew I was going through a bad divorce. So went to New York, stayed with them when I got there. I didn't have my own room like they promised because they had moved this guy in from Nigeria who they didn't even know. They didn't know him. But because he was from Nigeria, he got that room. And I had to sleep in the living room. And first, they was trying to push me with this guy for him to lie with me or to help him get his papers from Nigeria. And I just wasn't going through that anymore. And I remember all of their friends came over for a party or something like that in this small apartment. I couldn't believe they would do that. But anyway, I want to make this quick. So they were all sitting around talking. And for some reason, it was like the whole Jamaican thing over again. The conversation somehow stirred back to black Americans and people from Africa. So that's how they described it. And I say, we're all one. She say, well, would you give up your American nationalism for a Nigerian nationalism? And I said, no. She said, well, you're not African. I said, would you? I said to her, I almost called her name. I don't want to do that. I said, you're giving up your Nigerian nationalism right now to get an American card. So why would I then in turn and take something that you're running from? I say, my nationalism has helped others from my people from different places. You know, mind you now, I didn't accept Rastafari at this time. This is my mindset. I've always been conscious like this. So she's like, you know, my professor told me that black, because she was in college, you know, she had went to school. Mind you now, when I met her in the shelter and she had nowhere to stay, her own people, Nigerian, had threw her out with nothing but the clothes on her back. I bought her clothing. I want to put that in there. And she had this room full of these Nigerian people, and she's telling me that her professor told her that black people in America didn't have anyone to associate themselves with. So they called themselves African. She said that to me, and they started to laugh. And I said to her, I said, is your professor white? And she looked at me. That doesn't matter. I said, yes, it does. They are brainwashing you to hate me. You have forgotten when you were low who was there. They have been programmed to hate and justify their actions. It's within. So they're going to tell you that to make you hate me. They didn't like that. And they were all against me. I remember that. And I just remembered the situation that I had with the Caribbean, and I kept silent. And when I said I cried inside, nothing hurts a black American more than being taken away from their own people for so many years and to meet them and for them to spit in their face and say, who are you? Because that's exactly what they're saying. And everybody knows that I like Akabeko. Everybody knows that I like Midnight. And I had a problem listening to Midnight in the beginning because he had a song. He has a song that says Rastafari. Um, it's called Rastafari. And in the song, he says, in a way, he sings like black Americans, that we should accept them even though our ways are, even though we were taught wrong. That was the whole gist of what he was saying, and I don't, and it was hard for me to accept that because I said to myself, weren't we all taught wrong? Even in the Caribbean, even at home, because I've been in the Caribbean and I've been at home and I've dealt with our people from all walks all over this world, and we all have been taught wrong. I wish I can remember the exact word for word how he said it, but right now it's I'm at loss for words because it's just a really emotional stories, and that makes me check life now and why we can't progress to the next stage because we so stuck on what we have been taught until we are offending each other to the point where we can't even get along because all we see is hate. You know, we'll sit and we'll make songs about how white people are doing us and white people this and that and that. Oh, by the way, my ex-husband, who I helped to bring here because I felt sorry for him in a way, even though I knew he mistreated me in Jamaica. The one who two children I took care of and helped them go to school, pay school fees and everything for 4 or 5 years. Because I was just 21 years old and I was working and doing all of that. He even crashed and was in a coma. They were going to cut his leg off, my ex husband. And I sold everything I had to send him that money so they can put that steel rod in his leg and not cut his leg off. And do you know the money that I was sending that they didn't need as much as they were asking? They did it just to take from me. And I remember I couldn't even buy things that a woman needed because I sent everything. Do you know that he used me? He came here and right now he'll cut off his two legs just to be with me, of course. But that that's what that's what it was. So anyway, where am I going with this? We need to evaluate our ways in that midnight song. You know, the same one who I said I have a problem with something he said in one of his songs. I mean, we need to, but not everyone's perfect, you know? But we really need to evaluate our ways, and that's what his song is here. Evaluate our ways from start. We going have to evaluate our ways from start. We need to look over things. Our ways from start. Check what we are saying. Evaluate our way from start. If what we are saying and what we are doing is not helping each other, why are we doing it? To black Americans, I have to call you black Americans for you to understand who I'm talking about. Know who you are. Our people are just as lost as we are. They don't know who they are. So don't let them discourage you on this journey. We sit in a kind of a seat of power. We need to do things that maybe won't benefit us financially, but will help us grow spiritually and heal the wounds of the Kush nation. We're going to have to look at things deeply. I just remembered the words Akabeka say in his song. He said, even with the wrong teachings, black Americans still toast. So accept them. And I had a problem with that because basically, for me, how I'm taking that is that Caribbean and people from home have the correct teachings, and we're the only one that doesn't have the correct teachings. So we should still be accepted when black Americans are not doing anything that any of us anywhere else aren't doing or saying. So I couldn't understand that. I still don't understand that. That's my whole goal of trying to meet Midnight. For some reason, I can't. Um, I guess I'm never in place for one of his shows, and I really need to ask that because everybody's a growth, and I know no one's perfect, but that there for me, going through what I've been through, for me, that saying, it doesn't help and it's not right. It's just not correct. Plain and simple. And it divides us more, I think. And just that's just a little story about me. And those are my experience, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has experienced it. And also shows, I want to show that, even though uh, Midnight is very highly for me, in his sounds that he push in this struggle, it just shows you that we are on this journey and everyone can be questioned in our actions, and all of us, every single one of us, need to evaluate our ways big time. If we don't do it, our children are going to be left to do it. And our ancestors before us who took the time to warn us, it was all for nothing because we still sitting here, sitting side saddle, being stupid. I'm glad to get that off my chest and just get it out. Several situations. It's hard being black American because we born in massa house, so they say. And for some reason, they feel less of us. People still, where I work, there's a guy from Colombia who believes solely in Jesus Christ. But because he sees my roots, He said, you sure you're from America? And yet, look at his belief. Are you sure you from Cuba? It's funny, because he said, I told him I like Castro. He said Castro won't give them freedom of religion. I said, really? I said, I understand why, because religion is brainwashing. He's like, but Jesus died and everybody should be able to pray as they want. I say, that's true. I say, that's true. You're right about that. But I also understand Castro's point of view of trying to save his people. And he said, but I should be able to pray to who I want. I say, you're right. Because I'm Rastafarian. I don't pray to Jesus on the cross. I don't believe that he died on the cross. I believe it a different way. He said, no, there's only one way. I said, but you're doing just as you said Castro's doing. You're telling me I can't pray or chant to whoever I want. And I said, Selassie is I like God and King without apology. Black American, fully. Out of my wrong teachings, I set right.